Hi, this is Aussie Ty from A Crypto Current Affair, and today we're going to talk about what's happening in the marketplace. It's dropped again, and so I've got my friend Tom here to talk about the market and show us some technical analysis and see what the charts have to say about it. So Tom, it's mid-March, and I thought we'd hit the bottom last month in the crypto markets, and it seems to be doing it again. What's happening?
Same. If I was going to call the bottom, it would have been somewhere in the end of February. I thought for sure when we hit 5,900 for Bitcoin, I thought that was the low. It still is the low that we've reached in the dip, but right now we're still looking pretty bearish, and we're being pushed under this downtrend at the moment. So it's still looking pretty weak for the bulls at the moment. So right now it doesn't seem like we're gonna go up anytime soon.
Okay, so before we go into the charts, what do you think is driving this downward trend? Because there's been talk about whales trying to manipulate the market. I know that you posted something on Facebook recently about the Mt Gox people trying to sell their stash. Did you want to?
So basically there's always speculation as with any market, and there's a few theories, but from what I can see, to have a dip like this so quickly can only mean that there's a lot of people selling. So that could mean a variety of different reasons. A feasible explanation would be the Mt Gox Trustees who are selling massive amounts of Bitcoin to pay off their creditors. There's been rumors saying they have anywhere up to 2,000 Bitcoins, which is a lot of Bitcoins if you think about it. That's
$20 million, I'd say.
Yeah, that's definitely in the $1 million mark right there.
Yeah.
That's Lambo money right there.
Yeah, so I know because I've got 10,000 Bitcoin as my on my vision board, and that's about $10 million.
All right, okay,
Yeah.
there you go.
At $10,000 a pop, yeah.
Fair enough. Yeah, so that is one theory that people are putting out there, and of course you can always check this out. So but without getting too technical, we can see the address of the Mt. Gox Trustees. So if you theoretically wanted to see what they were actually doing, you can jump onto their public address. And this is the great thing about blockchains, right? Everything is transparent. All the transactions are transparent. So you can see when they're buying, when they're selling, or if they're just only selling. So you can see all this stuff. I personally haven't had a look at that because to me, it doesn't really matter so much. I more or less react based on price action. Mm-hmm. So whether it goes up or down, I can still trade that. But if you're curious into looking at that, and I might take some time to look at that in the future, that is definitely something that you can have a look at to see whether that is a reason or not.
Yeah, it'd be great to see. I think maybe we'll do it in another video to see the correlation with the price drops and the wallet. Can you see the transactions on the wallets?
Yeah, definitely.
And the dates,
Yeah, because I have a blog on Steemit as well. So I was posting about this, and I posted in the group, our Facebook group. And basically, I just circled in yellow on the 4-hour chart. Every second day or so, there was a dump around the same time. So it was around 2 p.m. to 4 p.m. UTC time. And you would see a noticeable drop in the price of Bitcoin. And there definitely seemed to be a pattern for a daily dump. We were calling it Dump O'Clock. So I was looking at that because I was looking to trade bearish on this. But yeah, it definitely seems there is a pattern. So it would be interesting to correlate that chart and what I've actually drawn out with the actual public address to see if the price action is matching the transactions on that account.
Okay, so I'll put a link to your chart in the description. But yeah, let's talk about that. That sounds a pretty good analysis or interesting for the next video.
Definitely.
So Tom, let's jump to the charts, and I see you prepared this earlier. Can you just tell us what these coloured lines mean?
Yeah, definitely, Ty. So if we take a look at this chart here, take note that this is the BTC versus USD chart, and we're looking rather on Bitfinex. Doesn't really matter what chart you're looking on. If you're primarily using Coinbase, just go on the Coinbase chart. There will be some slight differences, obviously, but for the purposes of the broad technical analysis, we're just going to look at the Bitfinex chart. So if you the purpose of these lines is more to draw some trends. So we call them trend lines. Now, I generally color my trend lines. So when we're going up, I like to put green because we're making the money. And when we're going down, I put a lot of red. So I've got a yellow one here, but generally I will put that in green.
So what does the yellow one denote? It's another trend line you've drawn.
Yeah, so this... Okay. The two yellow, so we won't focus on this line, but the green line here and the yellow line here are my uptrend lines.
Yeah.
And this red line here is my downtrend line.
Right. Right.
So if we want to just focus on where is Bitcoin going in general, I know a lot of people saying it's a down market, it's a bear market. We're hearing a lot of fear and FUD. And just general panic because a lot of people probably bought in at the all-time highs, or if not, somewhere in the middle in the $15,000 mark. So they're definitely in panic mode, right? Whether they say they're a passionate hodler or not, nobody's comfortable losing that much.
It's a very uncomfortable 6 weeks. It's only 6 weeks. It's a tiny amount of time, but it hasn't been fun, has it?
So anyone who tells you they're comfortable with it, I wouldn't trust them. But what I can tell you is if you take a look or a snapshot at the general outlook of what Bitcoin is, how Bitcoin's price action is performing, we are still in an uptrend. So that is the important thing to note. And this is why I have this line in yellow, actually, just to make a distinction between all the other uptrends that I've been noting in a shorter time frame. So this one here is spanning, let me get rid of that and that. I've drawn this trend line all the way from July last year. So
it's about 9 months. So
yeah, it's quite a long time. And general practice is the longer time frame that you draw your support lines and your downtrend lines, the more accurate they're going to be because they're more likely to have been proven on a longer time period as opposed to, say, this little green line here that I've drawn in a much shorter time period.
That looks like it's going to the moon, that short green
well,
line.
I mean, this is what we were looking at. I'll get to that in a second because
sure.
we had a brief breakout there, which I did post about, but we did not see any continuation. We actually got a double top, which was what I was explaining to Ty before we actually started shooting. And basically, when you get a double top, it just shows you there's a lot of resistance. That's why we keep reaching the same point in the price. And without being able to push past it, the only two options you have is to go sideways, or in this case, go straight back down again.
Straight down.
So that's exactly what happened. We went straight back down. I'm not too surprised about that because we tried to test that price in this little tiny blue line here for quite some, I think a few days actually, and we just couldn't push through it. So it just shows me that the bulls just weren't strong enough in this particular instance. But if you look at the yellow line, the reason I say we're still generally in an uptrend is because, I mean, it's quite obvious. The line is going up, right?
Yeah.
I mean, without being too technical, the line is going up. But if you have a look, we have tested this in the dip. So I only established this line. Actually, I established this line before we went to the dip, but I had a few other ones dating back a few more months because there was several scenarios that could have played out. We could have hit 6,000, which is more or less what we did, or we have gone down to, say, 3,000 and even 2,000. It's possible, right?
Yeah.
But we hit this mark, so it shows that there's a lot of strong support here, and we can see that at least our line is touching 3 points, which is showing that it's a fairly consistent line. So you always want it to touch at least more than twice, because if a point is just touching twice on a line, it's not a very strong trend line, in my opinion. Anyway.
Okay. That makes sense. Okay, so and did you want to talk about the downward trend line?
Yeah, there's one other thing I wanted to mention before that, Ty, and that is people keep saying they want to pick the bottom. So I just want to give people a tip on how they can actually tell that the bottom is in.
Are we in the bottom? That's the big
exactly.
million Bitcoin question.
I actually respond to a lot of people on Facebook groups just telling them to set stop losses, and I've got a video about that, but I won't get into it. But basically, they're trying to find the bottom, they're fishing for the bottom, and they keep getting burnt because they go, oh, look, just when I thought it was the bottom, I buy it and then it dips like another 10% or something, right? So I'll show you just one example, and we can just zoom into this chart. Whoop, zoomed in too quick.
Yeah. It's like that phrase when people saying, it's like, don't catch a falling knife, and that certainly feels like this market is it's a falling knife right now.
And the trend is your friend, right? So
Yeah.
if we're going down, as you can see here, the trend is your friend. So we're going down. So you should be looking to go down as well, for the price anyway. So the reason why I called this bottom, and I never called it before it came in. That's the important thing. I called it after it came in, because if I was to try and call this the bottom before it went down like this, it would have been pure speculation, in my opinion. We could have easily gone past $6,000. It was just a likely scenario, which is why I had this yellow line here. And the reason why I said, and I never said the bottom was in, I said the bottom is in for now. And I meant for this day.
Yeah.
And the reason I said that is because of the sheer volume
There's
that
a
we
huge
had.
spike there, isn't there?
Yeah, so if you look at this green volume bar, you can see that it's just massive. And it's massive compared to pretty much anything in this period. And if we check what period that is, at least the last 6 months, that's the biggest green volume bar that we had. So what that actually tells me is that is the most people buying at that particular point. So that's another reason why we say that this is support. So the reason it's support is because so many people thought, oh my God, Bitcoin, $6,000, this is a bargain. I need to buy it right now, right? Because it's going to go to the moon. It's going to go to 20,000.
And there's talk of 100,000 at the end of last year.
So that's how you look at it from a technical point of view. And you see we got some nice continuation. So that's the second thing that you would be looking for. So it's great. We have a lot of green volume. So that shows me that there is some strong support. And now I need continuation to the upside to make sure that that is a bottom, right? Otherwise, if we don't get continuation, we could very likely just go back down again.
Right.
But when you see such an abnormal amount of volume, even when we went all the way up to 19,000, almost 20,000, you can see that we never even got close to this mark here. So if you look a bit more closely at it, just at this point here, sorry, we're on the red one here. So it says 192,000 Bitcoins were bought at that particular moment, right?
Wow.
So that's telling you the sheer number of volume.
That's a lot of Bitcoin.
And if you compare it to, say, if you thought this was the bounce, right? And you thought this is definitely the low, and you compare it, and it's significantly low at 132,000. Now, this was not a bad, if you were predicting that was the low, it would not have been, completely irrational. You can see why I was much more confident that this one was the low, because of the sheer volume outweighing all this red volume, whereas here it's a bit more evenly matched. So it's pretty much on par. So you just have the same amount of people selling as you have the same amount of people buying. And as you can see, like, we did not have any continuation back to the upside. We kind of had a little bit of a bounce, and then we just went sideways for a bit.
Yeah.
So that's the difference in when you're looking at price action and volume.
Yeah. So with that bottom of around 6,000, because there were more buyers, that pushed the price up. Is that what
yeah,
happened?
Exactly. So
Okay.
we had a lot more buyers there. So there was a lot less people selling when we have that many buyers, and that's what pushed the price up. It's important to know, just a fun fact, this is not all buy volume. There is some bear volume there, but what happens is when you look at the colors of these volume bars, if it's red, it just means there's more sellers than buyers. If it's green, it just means there's more buyers than sellers.
Right.
So that's how you tell. So it's not to say like nobody tried to sell them.
Yeah.
I'm sure people were trying to sell them.
Right. Okay.
But there just happened to be way more buyers at the time.
Right. Okay. That makes sense. Didn't know that.
Yeah, it's a little fun fact that it took me a while to figure out as well. Now, did you wanted to ask about the current downtrend?
The downward trend. So I think that's the question everyone has on their mind, is how low do you think it can go, or what does this chart predict?
I've got that song, How Low Can You Go? So based off what I'm looking at, just from a technical aspect, we have seen a lot of strong support around this yellow line. So at least in the near future, if we cannot break to the upside, what I'm looking at, and it's looking like it wants to retest this support line right here. So you have a lot of people right now on YouTube calling Bitcoin at $7,000. I would never make that call because, as I said, I don't make these calls either. They just happen, and then I say this is what happened. I pretty much give people a recap on it. But it looks likely that we could retest this line, and this will be the true test to see if we hold this line or if we break through it.
Okay, so with that line there, what price point does that denote? About 8,100?
Yeah, so it's more just an estimate. So this is why you have to take these things with a grain of salt. And I think finally I should say that this is not financial advice.
No, we're just...
you should always do your own research.
Exactly. This is just two guys talking about crypto on the internet for entertainment purposes only. But yeah, it's just your interpretation of what could happen.
Yeah, exactly. So basically, if you just draw this out from a logical point of view, say we're just going to go down like this and just draw it out by hand, we're looking at hitting this line somewhere around here if we continue the current trend downwards. And when I say current trend downwards, I mean this particular red downtrend right here.
Yeah.
So you can see it's spanned all the way from, I think, mid-December, somewhere around there. This is when we started to go downwards.
Yeah.
And we had a massive drop. We had a bounce back up. And you can see we tried to retest to see if we could go higher. We could not break this line. So this to me was already quite strong. And then after our dip, we hit this line again. So for me, that's my 3-point criteria that we've hit. So it's a very strong line. You might see people who actually have been adjusting this line. I'm not a fan of adjusting the line up to here and saying we're still on the downtrend, here it is. Because I personally like to at least be touching the wicks or the top of the candlesticks.
Yeah.
So my thresholds are a little bit more precise. So you can see we get this gap here, and I'm not a fan of the gap here.
Yeah.
Just based on my own analysis. It's not wrong to put it there. It's just based on my own analysis, I don't like to put the line there, and I'll tell you why.
Yeah.
So when we hit this top, we retested the downtrend, and we struggled, as you can see, so we went back down. And this is why I drew this short-term uptrend. So it's not a very strong one, and I wouldn't base any of my trades on it, but it's basically just to give me an idea of like if I was to draw it out hand, where we could possibly head. So what happened is we bounced off this line, and then we actually pushed through this downtrend. So this is the reason why I didn't adjust this, because I actually saw that we broke through this downtrend, and this was very positive, right? But at the same time, we got stuck at this blue line, which is the double top. Now, this is not ideal for the bulls because it shows that there's some strong resistance here for whatever reason. And I don't know what the reason is, to be honest. But at this point, around it's more or less around the $12,000 mark. This one here I put in a bit lower, but it's around that mark that we couldn't push through, and that's why we saw some continuation back to the downside. But it's important to note that I didn't move this line because this was looking very positive. So once we broke through here, you can see we had a lot of continuation to the upside.
Right.
We had almost 4 green days. So we had 4 days of just going up in price, right? So it's not bad. But then once we hit that double top, you can see how many days of red we had. So I mean, it all comes from perspective. But those would have been the two levels that I was watching. First, can we break this red line? And then second, can we break this blue line?
Yeah.
And if I was to be trying to invest into Bitcoin, these are the two lines I would be watching. So
Right.
if we broke this blue line, that's a very strong indication that we're going to continue going up, and perhaps we might follow this uptrend.
Right.
Because this is exactly where that uptrend is as well.
So that resistance level is around $12,000 there.
Yeah, more or less. I think it's 11,800, but you got to zoom into the smaller time frames, which I'll let you guys do in your own time because we might be here all day.
Yeah. So I will put the comments in a few weeks. So we are saying that potentially at this date, which is the end of the month, so around 31st of August, it could be about $8,200. Is that? Have I read it correctly?
April. You said August.
April.
But,
no, sorry. Is it April or March?
I would say it would probably reach a bit earlier, just by the severity of this dip. It could very much draw itself out, And you can see once we went back under the red line, we've held it quite closely. So it's been treated as resistance. So we had some brief peaks over it, but more or less we're still getting pushed under it. So that's why I've kept it there, right? Because if I moved it up again, our wiggle room gets a lot bigger. But I like to keep it here because this is what I'm looking at to see if it's going to stay with this line or is it going to go up from this line.
And you're touching the 3 points there.
Yeah, exactly. So my 3 points have already been met, so I'm happy to keep that as the trend line. And then this is just an anomaly where we had the double top and then we just went back down again.
Okay, so with this analysis, you feel for your portfolio that Bitcoin is in a bear cycle and potentially could be dropping?
Well, my opinion is this. So we are still in the fundamentally an uptrend, right, from this line that spans all the way from July that I drew out. So this is quite positive to me. And because we bounced so hard on this line, that's also quite positive to me as well. And what I'm looking at right now to confirm this, right now I think we are in a short-term downtrend here because of this inability to pass through this line, except for this brief moment here, and then we just get pushed back under it straight away again. So what I would like to see to confirm that we're going to continue this yellow line of going up is just two scenarios. There is the option that we can go sideways, but ideally what I would like to see is it either hit this line and bounce straight back up with the similar kind of pace that it did at this point. Because that would show me, okay, this line is very strong. Don't mess with this line. Right? Or we just go straight up from here. So those are the two likely scenarios that I'll be playing out for. But as I said, we are in the short-term downtrend. Whoops. Give me a sec.
So how often would you be looking at your charts, Tom?
Well, I look at the charts every day because I just can't help it. And I do a lot of trading during the day. So for me, I don't do it every day, but I just like doing it. So when I have some spare time, I might look at the chart and see where we're going to go and possibly make a trade in there. Not every day, but if the conditions are favorable to me, then I will be making a trade.
I think I'm kind of the reverse to you during this period of uncertainty. I've sort of stepped back from the market and started doing more analysis of the technology and the coins and whatnot rather than the price. So
definitely. I think that's a good strategy as well. I think you should also be very familiar, especially with the coins that you're investing in, with their fundamental values and a good fundamental analysis of them. Because at the end of the day, when you see a massive drop like this and it's 70%, 60%, you kind of want to have a strong core belief that Bitcoin or whatever other coin you've invested in is actually good.
And
or
has a
actually
future.
Provides value to people. And if you were just on the money hype and the money train, the TMT money team, then you would have panicked and most likely sold, which is why we saw such a severe dip, because that's exactly what happened to a lot of people.
Because they didn't actually have any belief in the product or the coin.
So in I think late December, everyone saw, okay, Bitcoin's in 20 grand. Let's just go all in on it. Why not? It seems to just do nothing but go up in price. And then, they get punished for not doing their research.
But I recall around Christmas, there was this huge feeling of FOMO if I didn't, the thought actually went through my head, should I sell my apartment and put it in Bitcoin? I'm so glad I didn't.
Take out a loan.
So glad I didn't, but there you
definitely. Well, that's always good to know that you didn't do that.
So guys, if you'd like us to do any other fundamental analysis and technical analysis on other projects, put it in the comments and we'll do another video on that for you. So did you want to go quickly on to any of the other coins?
Yeah, definitely. So we'll just wrap up really quickly. And what I'll do is just a brief analysis on the other coins. Not as much detail as we just did in the Bitcoin chart. But at least it gives you an idea of what's happening. So let's look at Ethereum now. Ethereum is number 2 on our leaderboard of cryptos, and I've only drawn two simple lines here. So we have this line here, the support line, as you can see. So we are still in an uptrend for Ethereum as well. But you can see that we have been pushed down by this downtrend here. So this one unfortunately doesn't get the 3 points. So I'm not too happy about this line, but this is the best that we can go off based on the downtrend. So Ethereum is not able to touch, whereas we can see that Bitcoin was able to bounce and touch this line after the dip in in January.
Mm-hmm.
So what that tells me is that Bitcoin is performing better than Ethereum. So Ethereum is a little bit more bearish during this down market, as you can see, because when we had the bounce, it could not reach the levels that Bitcoin reached. And that's my brief comparison. To get a more detailed comparison, the way you would look at it is actually jump onto the Ethereum / Bitcoin chart instead of the Ethereum USD chart, because then you directly compare the correlations as opposed to comparing both of the coins to USD.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So with this chart, as a newbie, I'd say there is a long-term upward trend, but it's going through a correction phase at the moment.
Exactly. So ideally what I would want it to do is to hold this green line here. You can see we had a lot of points here where it touched. I think that meets our 3-point criteria. I mean, technically that's just more or less 1 point that we touched on the line, but we were there for a while, so I'm happy to have the line there. But the concerning factor for Ethereum anyway is that we've actually got a lower low. So that's also another indication that it's showing me it's more bearish than Bitcoin. When I say lower low, I mean we got a lower low slightly than this point here, which was the dip we had in January.
Yeah.
So if you jump back onto the Bitcoin chart, you notice that we never got this lower low. We got a higher low, which is significantly favors an uptrend, right? And we're currently going to test to see if we do get a lower low or not. And that's why this yellow line is so important. But for Ethereum, we actually got a lower low, close enough to almost be called a double bottom. So this remains to be seen what it actually does. So I would not be making any entries into Ethereum at this stage because it's looking very bearish.
Right.
And in my opinion, if I'm going to be making an entry, it's much safer to make one in Bitcoin, as it looks at least less bearish than Ethereum does.
Okay. All right. And what about the other coins?
So if we jump onto Litecoin,
Charlie Lee was in town recently.
Yeah, no, I missed him, and I think you.
I know, I missed him too.
Well, we'll get him next time, eh?
We will.
So Litecoin has been quite bullish due to the recent Litepay news that you've been hearing around. But basically, if we look at this, it pretty much fills our 3-point criteria. So this is still in this short-term downtrend, and we do have that long-term uptrend going for Litecoin. If we were to compare it to Bitcoin, it did actually become a little bit more bullish than Bitcoin during the Litepay news, but I think from looking just at the daily chart, we were actually able to break this downtrend here. And if we look at Litecoin, technically, if we drew our line here, which is where we have for Bitcoin, it would have we saw this massive jump, and that was a Litepay news, right?
Right.
But I've drawn it here again. I've had to adjust because we're going back down again, and this still hits the 3 points, so this is fine for me to draw it here. But that's why people were saying it's more bullish than Bitcoin, because this is what happened if we were following before. Like, we had this downtrend, we hit almost 5 points, right? So this is a fairly consistent downtrend, and then we just had this jump. And this was a lot of hype and a lot of sell to news action going on. Right. So when people announced that the Litepay was going to come out, a lot of people just bought into Litecoin and said, "Oh, look, Litecoin's going to the moon." It went somewhere near the moon. It definitely went somewhere near the moon, and then we had a nice. This is a pretty healthy.
I think it hit the ozone layer.
We literally just went vertical, right? So I think this is quite a healthy correction. And as with all these coins, it is important to know that Bitcoin is the dominant cryptocurrency in the market. I don't know the exact numbers, but I think it's around 40% of dominance, or from 35 to 40%. So most of these coins, they actually fluctuate somewhat correlated to Bitcoin. So that's why when we see Bitcoin's price going down, it's very likely that you see the other coins' price going down unless they're going to break the correlation with Bitcoin to some extent. And the reason behind that is because, as I explained to you earlier, Bitcoin is the most tried and tested cryptocurrency. It's been around for years. It's had its ups, it's had its downs, but it's been tested the most and it's survived the most.
And it's stable, has never been hacked. It's we know what to expect with the technology.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So if in times of panic and FUD, where we're in a bear market and prices is going down, and people have invested their money into, say, some other coins where they may have not have researched as thoroughly or know as well as Bitcoin, or just even some smaller market cap coins, the likely scenario is that they remove those positions and put it back into Bitcoin, because in all this panic, they are going to favor Bitcoin, because as you can see, Bitcoin is the most bullish, at least compared to Ethereum. We'll discount the hype for the Litepay and draw our line here. So it is looking the strongest of the cryptocurrencies in terms of fighting this downtrend, if we can say.
Yeah.
But it still remains to be seen. But there's definitely a strong correlation between Bitcoin's price going down and all the altcoins' prices going down with a little bit more severity, just because their market caps are a lot smaller than Bitcoin's.
Okay. And you've got the last coin. What do the charts say about that?
Icon's a bit more just out of left wing. It's one of the altcoins that I'm pretty fancy with the...
It's kind of one of the new hot platforms coming out of Asia.
Yeah, exactly. So they're calling it the Neo of Korea, or the Ethereum of Korea. To sum it up in, say, one sentence, I think they call it the hyper-connected world. But basically, they are a blockchain platform that allows for communication between other blockchains that are created on that platform through a nexus. I won't go into that, but that can be for another video. But that's basically the platform that they're creating in Korea. And they're looking to expand overseas. So we'll see if that happens, much like how the Neo network was able to do for China. But if we look at the technicals here, sorry, my sensitivity is a bit off. Here we go. That's good enough. Oh, actually, a little bit more. Here we go. Oh, that's good here. I'll get this out of the way. So we have, now it's important to know, this is a fairly new coin, so this is all the data we have to go off. So it's not going to be as accurate to do TA on a coin like this, because if you look at it, the chart stops for TradingView anyway on Binance at
Christmas.
December. Yeah, just before Christmas.
Yeah.
So, there's only been like 3 months of price action we can base off historical data that we can build some patterns off. So that just means that it's not going to be as accurate as the other ones. But if we have just a general snapshot of it, what it's looking like it's doing is it had its massive run up, and then we hit the downtrend, and then we're just going down. So we're stuck in this short-term downtrend here. We have our support here. It's slowly dripping downwards, and that's most likely due to the correlation between the altcoins and Bitcoin. So if Bitcoin's price keeps going down, it's very likely that this is going to just keep dripping down.
Right.
Just because one, most people trust Bitcoin more than any other altcoins, and then two, it has a bigger market cap.
Yeah.
Than this particular coin. So those are the reasons why it would most likely just drop down if our market cap in general decreased.
Okay, not financial advice, but if you were a fan of Icon, now could be a good time to purchase?
To be honest, it's very unclear to pick the bottom. And my advice is generally to look at the Bitcoin chart for some clues. So if I was going to enter into Icon, I wouldn't really bother looking at this chart so much. I'd take a look at it before I bought it, but primarily what I'd be doing is just staring at this Bitcoin chart and seeing if we can bounce off this. Because if we don't bounce off this, I don't see any of the other altcoins
Everything's
going
gonna
up.
suffer.
That's not to say some of them won't go up, but in general, because there's such a huge dominance, for the whole market cap for Bitcoin, I think if we break this line, it's very likely that all these other coins are going to continue down with Bitcoin as well.
Yeah, so there's a lot of psychological, emotional attachment to Bitcoin. So if it does turn bullish, then we could see a flow-on effect to the altcoins.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And the last point I want to say is another reason why Bitcoin is so dominant is because like when you go on all your exchanges, like you got your Binance, your Bittrex, and all these other exchanges, they're all paired with either Bitcoin, usually Bitcoin, then Ethereum, and then sometimes you have some other coins like Neo, Litecoin, but everything's definitely paired with Bitcoin.
Right.
And that's why you see such a dominance, because like they have no choice. You can't just go buy Icon with USD. You need to buy Bitcoin or Ethereum or Litecoin first, and then you can go and buy your Icon. So that's the process that it takes to buy an altcoin. So that's why you always need Bitcoin first, or one of the top three, say like Ethereum or something like that. Yeah. So that's why you see such a fluctuation that's more magnified on these altcoins than on Bitcoin, because if they're going to sell their altcoins, they need to sell into Bitcoin or Ethereum first before they sell it into their fiat currency.
Yeah. Okay, great.
Yeah, hopefully, guys, this is giving you a bit more of an understanding of where we are at the moment. We're in a temporary downtrend, and we're just going to look to see if we can maintain our overall uptrend for the cryptocurrency market. Most notably, we're going to be looking at Bitcoin.
Well, thanks, Tom. That's been very enlightening. I don't know if I'll be able to go into that detail for my own analysis, but thanks. And if you like this video, please click like and subscribe, and we'll do some more videos for you. This is Aussie Ty from Crypto Current Affair and Tom, and we'll see you next time.
Thanks, guys. Take care.
Click like and subscribe and join me on this Crypto Current Affair. Just because it's double doesn't mean it's a bubble.